Hello, I'm Matt Peterson,
And I'm Rich Trappier.
and this is the best of 2022. Rich, what a year. And I'm not just saying that. I know we always say crap like that when we do this thing, but looking back over what we played and what we did, what we were able to do together, I thought 2022 was really a banger year for wargaming, at least in our world.
Yeah, for me too. Early in the year, I found out that I had some work schedule changes, and it was going to cause me to. At first, I thought it was going to cause me to miss both of the cons that I'd planned on going to. Luckily, I was still able to make one of them, but I was started off the year with a big disappointment in that. But the way it turned out, I can't complain. Got a new job, and I got to play lots of games last year, so I'm happy.
That's great. If this happens to be the first time you listen to us, well, welcome. And if you're a returning listener, things are going to be a little bit different this year. We've talked about it before. In the past, we kind of broke everything down by best category and then gave you our best of the year. And I don't know, that didn't really make sense for us anymore. One, we were actually talking before we started recording, neither of us are big Napoleonic gamers yet. So what's the point of talking about a best Napoleonics category?
Yeah, I didn't end up playing any magazine games this year, so.
Right. I played some small games, but yeah, no magazine games either for me. So here's how things are going to look this year. We have a top 6. I don't know why 6 is our number, but it tends to be the number we go with. And we're going to start at number 6, working till number 1. And in between, we've got other questions. Things like biggest disappointment, publisher of the year. And then if you're familiar with our past episodes, we also have recordings from a bunch of special guests. Looking forward to those. Some quality, solid recordings this year.
Yeah, so this is our 2022, which means that some of the games did not come out in 2022. They were new to us in 2022. But that's the nice thing about having a hobby that we have, is there are, 50 years worth of great games out there that we haven't played. So if we played a game from 1984 and we played it for the first time last year, it goes onto last year's list.
Yeah, it qualifies. New to us is the threshold, and yeah, we're all over the place. This isn't limited to 2022 games. How did you, I'll talk about mine first, but process of ranking for me, I actually took every single thing that was new to me, whether it was a hot pile of garbage or whether it was, one of the best games I've ever played, and I considered every single game against each other. And I narrowed that list down to about the top 20. And then I kept re-ranking it until I got to the top 6, and even up until recording, I was still a little unsure on my number 6.
Yeah, you put a lot more time and effort into it than I did. I did the stuff that I remembered. I did actually go back and look at like my Board Game Geek list of things that I had played and stuff like that. And there was a couple that we'll talk about later that just obviously jumped right out at me. But other than that, it was just a sort of feeling I had about certain games. And, if you ask me again in a few weeks or a few months, especially after I get to play some of them again, it could change. But that's where we stand right now.
Little spoiler for the list. Only one crossover, which in years past we have crossed over. I mean, just by virtue of the nature of our podcast, we play a lot of the same games.
Yeah.
But not a ton of crossover this year.
Yeah.
And I think the last thing I'll add is there'll be a few other things to wrap up the show. We'll mark it, like, clearly, if you're only here for the Wargame stuff, we wrap up the show with, like, best fiction and best TV shows. All that stuff's going to be at the end of the episode. But after we do our top 6, we also play a little game where we revisit our every Wargame ever list. So this is the one time a year that games are allowed to shift up or down our list. And then we can also add games that we know we're never going to feature on the show. For example, Risk. Although we're not going to put Risk on the list, but there's a good example. It's something everyone knows, or maybe another game that I'm going to throw out tonight. It's just not worth diving into and dedicating an episode to. So this is the time of year those get added as well.
Risk versus Zeppelin Raider. Matt, go.
Zeppelin Raider.
Oh, wow.
I think I've made a terrible
may
mistake.
have to rank it so the Zeppelin Raider can get out of the basement.
But now I'm kind of thinking about it, and maybe we need a Risk episode because, Risk at least has the nostalgia effect.
Yeah.
But
it's got a zombies version.
Sure. I've heard the Legacy version is actually a ton of fun. The inspiration for Pandemic.
Yeah.
Legacy.
Yeah.
All right. Am I forgetting anything, Rich?
I don't think so. Let's jump into it.
Let's get going. So let's start with our number 6 game of the year.
Yeah. Do you want me to go first?
Yeah.
Number 6 game of the year for me was Thunder at Dawn. So this is a Civil War game set right here in Missouri. It's part of the Blind Sword system, and I've played a few of the Blind Sword system, and this one just came out. I think it just came out this year. I know I just got it this year, and I think I got it when it first came out. But I just loved it. It's a great addition to the system. I think that the battlefield itself on the map is really interesting. I like the way the artillery has longer range on this one than it does on some of the other ones, comparatively on the map. So had a great time with it. It's a great game. That's my number 6.
Yeah. Thunder at Dawn. That's 2021 release from Revolution Games, and that's covering Wilson's Creek right here in Missouri.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll just add real quick. Blind Swords just missed the list for me this year. It's not my first out, so we'll address that, what was our number 7, if you will. But I did play A Greater Victory last year and had a blast with it. But my top 6 was really crowded. And so Greater Victory found itself was outside looking in. I suspect if I had played and spent a good amount of time with Thunder at Dawn, I'm suspecting I'll like that a little bit more, but won't know until I try it.
Yeah. Thunder at Dawn's a great addition to the series, and it's a great game day game because it doesn't take too long to play.
Very good. My number 2, or no, I'm the second one up. That's what that number means.
It's got a 2 in it.
That's right. Number 6 is Second Fleet. So just a recent ranking for us. I like everything about this game. I like the segments that the game is carved up. If you're unfamiliar with the Fleet series, go check out our episode on that. But this is naval warfare, and it's naval warfare done really, really well. I am cautiously optimistic for a return to the series. I hope they don't try to change too much, because the core of Second Fleet is solid, and it doesn't need to be messed with.
Yep. Excellent game. Very playable. That was almost my surprise of the year, was how playable the game was. Yeah.
Great. Speaking of surprise of the year, look at that segue.
I know.
Biggest surprise of the year. Why don't you go ahead?
For me, it was Brotherhood and Unity, and I think it just came down to the fun factor. I just didn't really know much about the game, but I looked at it, and I even saw I saw you playing at Historic Fest before I played it, and I thought, yeah, whatever. It didn't really grab my attention or anything. The theme, the Bosnian Civil War didn't necessarily interest me, but I sat down and played the game a few times, and the fun factor on that one is just through the roof. So that was my surprise.
Well said. I also picked some fun games, and I cheated and picked 2 because they were surprises for the same reason. Flashpoint South China Sea and Red Flag Over Paris, especially Flashpoint, just because I really didn't think I would like Flashpoint. And then after I played it, I really didn't think there was going to be any kind of depth to the game. Even after my first play, I was like, this feels a little shallow. The more I play it, the more I enjoy it, the more the depth reveals itself. I will say the theme could be shopping for different kinds of onions in a grocery store. It's the theme does not really come through in this game, but the mechanics are sound. It's a great short card-driven game. Now, Red Flag Over Paris feels way more thematic to me, and it was another surprise because past experience with Fort Sumter, I played Fort Sumter kind of going into Red Flag Over Paris to get experience with it. It's just a deeper game than Fort Sumter. It takes that base of Fort Sumter, you're playing cards, move cubes around this abstracted kind of map. It's just those improvements on the base of Fort Sumter set it way ahead of Fort Sumter in my eyes.
Nice.
And this is a good time to
we'll get
go
back
ahead
to that one.
Yeah, and I'm going to go ahead and this is as good a time as any to mention that our January episode, we can announce that our featured games will be the short game extravaganza. So thank you to all of our Patreons over the year. Their final vote for 2022 was voting on our January game. And we'll be playing Attack Sub, 300, Red Flag Over Paris, Shores of Tripoli, and Flashpoint South China Sea. And have a whole bunch of games coming up in January.
Awesome.
All right, before we get to number 5, let's hear from our first guest. And this guest is someone we both had a chance to meet this year at Historic Fest. I think we both played some games with them.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hear from Dr. Don.
Hi, this is Don Levick from Allentown, Pennsylvania. My best game experience was historic KC Fest in August in Kansas City. I got to meet some great people, ate some great barbecue, played a lot of games, and I almost won Next WarCon. Damn you, Bill. My favorite game of the year was the Next War series, which I learned in 2022. Played Vietnam at home and at KC Fest. I'm playing India-Pakistan on Vassal, and I have the opportunity to playtest Next War Iran also on Vassal. So it's been a great Next War year. Happy holidays to everybody.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil too much, but just Historic Fest as a whole was a highlight, and especially all the different people that you get associated with just from the podcast. Bill, Don, Brandon, Carl. I know I'm forgetting people that showed up because of that. It was really nice to meet all of them, including Don, and so thanks for submitting your best of, Don.
And I think you and I both have regular games with Don now, don't we?
Yeah, cool. We do.
Yeah. Excellent.
All right, number 5, Rich. So, without spoiling your list, I'm going to spoil that you have all war games.
I know, and you don't.
I don't. Number 5 is Dutch Inner City. It's a cube rail game. It's very short. The mechanics of placing cubes on rails are not the highlight of this game. What the highlight of this game is pricing and auctioning off shares in companies and managing your cash and triggering the end of auctions. Some of the most fun I had all year was playing Dutch Inner City.
Yeah, I have seen you play it. I have heard other people talking about it, and everyone that I've heard say anything about it loves this game. So I need to play sometime.
Thursday at Historic Fest. I
Yes.
think I'm going to open the con. That first night for me is going to be things like Dutch Inner City.
Sounds like a plan.
Good. All right, what's your number 5, Rich?
5 for me, going back to what I just talked about, Brotherhood and Unity. So,
Nice.
like I said, it's not the deepest game. It's not like heavy strategy or anything. It's just, it is a super fun game. And kind of like Thunder at Dawn, it's a game that you can play easily in a single game day, which is a big plus.
Yeah, in like an hour and a
obviously,
half. We
I
played in
love-
2 hours.
Yeah, I love huge games, but I can also appreciate that it's nice to be able to play a game in a couple, 3 hours and be done with it.
Yeah, and I also think that I want something like Brotherhood and Unity to go beyond
Yeah.
that. It fits in its window well. It
Yeah.
stays in its lane, and I respect it for that. It's
Absolutely.
a great game.
Yeah, I loved it.
All right, what about our not so great games? We're going to talk about our
Ooh.
biggest disappointments of the year.
Yeah. So you've got one that was actually a big game, and I've got a smaller game.
Yeah. So the big game, the Second World War Hakapale. These are massive games with massive rule books that fetch a massive price tag. And it's Finland during the Second World War. What's
I
not to love
know.
about it?
Yeah. That's crazy that you were disappointed in it.
Not only is just like the stacks overly fiddly for no reason, but just the rules are. Every step you have to go through doesn't lead to a satisfying game experience. And I was really disappointed with the Second World War Hakapale this year. It was quite a bit of a stinker. It's not a system that appears to have any redeeming factor. The coolest thing about the Second World War now is that you can combine into this massive monster game and combine all these different individual games into one combined Second World War, but I have no desire to even experience that now because the actual gameplay isn't fun.
Yeah. That's
And
a shame.
I played that with our buddy Paul, and I want to talk about my second biggest disappointment this year. Everyone in the Wilderness War tournament played through 3 or 4 games in like a month. Here we are in January, and Rex and Paul are somehow still playing their tournament game of Wilderness War.
What are they doing?
I don't know. I guess they're out in the wilderness.
They're dressing up in costume and cosplaying it. Yeah.
That's right. Every individual battle they get into, then they're breaking into a more detailed.
Yeah. They're playing another tactical game for each battle that they fight.
Right. They're busting out into bar or something like that every time they engage each other. All right, Rich, what let you down this year?
Yeah, for me it was Königsberg 45, which was, if I was going to have a biggest negative surprise, I guess that's what disappointment is. This is it. It's by Revolution Games, and they make good stuff. It's a small Ziploc bag game, so I mean, I thought it was going to be another one of these small but fun games. And honestly, this game, it's not a terrible game, but it's boring to play at 2-player. I mean, honestly, for the German player, it's just murderously boring. If you want to play this as a solitaire game, I think it would be a lot more fun, but just, you have nothing to do and you're just getting run over as the German player, and there's just not much fun in there at all. So that was my disappointment.
Yeah, I'm not surprised to see this on your list just with how you talked about it, but it is what it is. Not every game can be the U.S. Civil War. And speaking of, let's hear from a man who appreciates and acknowledges the best war game ever made, our good friend and back-to-back last man standing, Bill Simone.
Hi guys, this is Bill, checking in with my 2022 year in review. Real quick, the best new to me games, Salerno 43 and Brotherhood and Unity. I'm grateful for my face-to-face gaming group that plays most Saturdays, and also for the ongoing scheduled online games of Commands and Colors Ancients, Next War India-Pakistan, and Combat Commander that I have going on right now. My biggest regret is I didn't get a chance to play the best game ever in 2022. My favorite cons are Historic Fest and Buckeye Game Fest. I heartily recommend anybody check those out. They're the best mid-sized cons I've ever been to. And then as far as my favorite podcast goes, my wife's calling me. Gotta run. Happy New Year, guys.
Bill's great. I appreciate him sending a list. Bill's helping me. It's Bill and I are doing the Historical Board Game Awards together. It's really great that this podcast has led to us meeting all these people we wouldn't normally meet. And you and I,
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's keep it rolling. Number 4.
Number 4 for me is a game that just broke a lot of molds. It didn't actually come out this year, but it's the first time I played it was this year. And that was Atlantic Chase. So, in the year of naval wargaming, this was a good one to play, but this is unlike any naval wargame you've played before. It's not hex and counter. There are no counters at all. There are blocks, but not even like a block game. There are trajectories and things like that. So it's hard to describe. You can go back and listen to our review of it. But it was just such an interesting game. And even though I played it quite a bit, I feel like there's so much more that I can still play. And I need to get it back on the table. That was my number 4 of the year.
Yeah, I'll say it for about the 12th time this year. The campaign gameplay in Atlantic Chase is phenomenal. It really kind of turns on its head wargaming objectives in the sense that early on when you're the Germans, you just want to run out there, strike, and get back. And that's the scenario, and it's a little bit different than like, all right, let's run out there and fight this long engaged battle as we, try to take all this land in OCS or something like that. No, it's go out and get home.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. Other good stuff. The more I think about this game, the more I appreciate the things about it, and that's Front Toward Enemy. This is a tactical Vietnam game from Multiman Publishing. This checks so many boxes and does so many cool things. One, it takes tactical and does something different with it, like Last 100 Yards, which is a game you and I both really enjoy. A game that I think I am enjoying more and more as I play it. It's not so much about just run your guys into a wall and not have other considerations. I know there's ASL and ATF scenarios that do factor in, losses as part of the victory conditions or eliminating a certain amount. But here you have to worry about civilians, you have to worry about casualties. This game lets you fly in choppers, like bring all your troops on choppers, set up your landing zones, you can come in with attack helicopters. Front Toward Enemy is a game that I think flies under the radar. It doesn't get the love it deserves. I don't even think it got the love it deserves from us.
Yeah, it's one of the few that we reviewed that I didn't play. So you reviewed that one yourself.
That's right. Right. Did you play? I can't remember. Did you play any of this?
No, I haven't played Front Toward Enemy at all.
Oh, Rich. It's very, very, very good.
I believe you.
All right. Well, yeah. Listeners, take my word for it. And what's great is you can pick it up in an MMP sale, it's one of those games that will often you'll find deep discount.
Yeah.
And it's totally 100% worth it.
Which I suppose that means it didn't sell very well. So I'm not sure why, but not because you weren't saying good things about it.
Well, but I was 3 years late. You know? All right, speaking of sales, how about that for a segue? This question was submitted by our buddy Patrick Bro-Leary, and that was, who was our publisher of the year for 2022?
Yeah, so, tough question. I think probably if you add up most of my games, I've probably played more GMT games than anyone else this year, but that's not necessarily the reason that I picked GMT for this answer for me. When I think of the year and I think of just the sort of definition of the year and how it went, it all started when I received that big, huge box in January from GMT. We had been talking about it. Everybody knew this was coming. People were joking about how, all their budgets were going to be broken. And here comes a bunch of GMT games on my doorstep. And then two of them, we'll talk about later because they're my number 1 and 2 games of the year. And one of them I played for 6 months out of the year. So it's got to be GMT just because of that box that defined my whole year.
Dang. If I had thought about it and the terms you did, I would, let's be honest, I'd probably be picking GMT as well. I feel like even if we didn't feature exclusively GMT games over there, which we didn't and we don't, GMT is still always a part of our conversation, just with what they're releasing, what we're playing. And so certainly that makes sense. I looked at this in another lens, I guess. And I guess to me it was biggest surprise or biggest splash. And I got to give a nod to VUCA Simulations just with what appears to be, I've still only played Donnerschlag, their quality of products they're releasing. And I think to me that makes them the publisher of the year because even though they released stuff before 2022, this really feels like their year of entry into the hobby.
Yeah. And I heard buzz from a lot of people about some of the games this year, so.
Yeah, 1914 Natch Paris.
Yep.
There's the Chasing of the Bismarck, which looks super interesting. I would just like to, the topic doesn't interest me, but it's something I'd like to experience just with how the blind game works.
Sure.
So VUCA Simulations gets the nod from me.
Cool.
Okay. So last year, Fred Serval submitted his first recording, and he turned me on to all these great games. And then I listened to some more of his Homo Ludens and found some other great games for him. And, well, let me just say, we're happy to have Fred back with his best of for 2022.
Hi, I'm Fred Serval. I'm a game designer and the host of Homo Ludens, a show on history and board games. Matt asked me what was for me the best of 2022 in wargaming. So here are my historical gaming highlights for this year. The first one is a game released in late 2021, but that I only started playing this year, Brian Boru by Pierre Sylvester. I'm a big fan of this designer. I really loved Versins das Volk and The King is Dead. And for me, this latest design is a masterpiece. It's a medium-weight historical board game that can be played with almost everyone, building on a trick-taking mechanic that everyone knows to create a clever area majority and political game. It's extremely clever, it's subtle, it's sharp. The second highlight for me is the PAX series. I know it's not new, but I got into PAX with Pax Pamir 2nd edition when it was released, and it straight up entered my top 10. This year, the PAX series was a big highlight for me because I played a lot of them. Thanks to the Homo Ludens community, we played a lot of Pax Porfiriana, and I also started playing Renaissance, Viking, and I played a lot of Pax Pamir Online thanks to Rally the Troop, a platform to play online that is really awesome. And by the way, I would like to give a big thanks to Thor for all the work that he's doing on this. And what I think is an highlight for me, but not only for me, but also for the historical gaming community as a whole, is everything that happened around awards this year. The San Diego HistCon launching its new award to reward innovation, the CSR that is now under the direction of Gary from Artwolf's Lair, and of course the award that is going to be held by this very podcast that you're listening now, that I'm very much looking forward to. I feel like we need this as a community. And if it's done well, it could be a very, very good news for 2023. So those were my 2022 highlights. And thanks again for the invite.
There you go.
Nice.
Yeah, I guess so. You know, I mean, there's no secret in podcasting that Rich and I have listened to these clips and then we just plug them in, so it is a little bit awkward. Like, all right, let's listen to Fred, and we don't actively listen while we wait for that. By the magic of radio. That's right. So peeling back the curtain. All right,
we're halfway done with our list, though.
Wow, blowing through it. You doing good? And you need a break? You need a drink break?
No, it's a Tuesday night. I'm drinking water.
Right, same here. So lame compared to last year's, but it is what it is. I mean, I feel like in years past we're pretty sauced by the end of it and can barely make it through it.
Yeah, we had to delay it this year, so
yeah, fair enough.
We'll get back to it.
Number 3. I'm branching away from war games again.
So you're like, at this point, you're half and half war games to not war games.
That's how the list is going to shake out too. So I will talk about this later, but 2022 was not only a banner war game year, but I played all of my favorite 18xx games, and I played 3 of the 4 in person. And so it really was a year of 18xx for me, and the best new to me for this year is the Old Prince 1871. This game really shakes. It's still the tried and true 18xx bones, right? But from the initial way that games are offered up, that private companies are offered up, basically, Rich, you're dealt 5 of them and you offer them up to the players one at a time. And if they don't buy them, you have to buy them. That's interesting. A certain amount of companies can be started. There's like tranches. So in OR1 you can only start this many companies. Next time around you can only start 1 company. Next set of SRs you can start 2. You can branch off companies. There's one straight piece of track and then the entire game. It's just a great game. There's like 1 player's in charge of the bank. There's companies that start out floated. There's companies that are 1 share away from being floated. Fantastic game. 1871. Or the Old Prince 1871. You played on .games, but I don't think, unless you want to make your own print and play copy, you can't buy this one yet.
Is this your favorite 18xx game?
To be honest, it's up there. It's in my top 3.
Yeah, I've heard you talk about it a lot recently.
You know, what's funny is when it first came on to .games, there's a mad rush, and I played it, and I was like, oh, that was fine. But that was like surface level, and then once I started, I reread the rules, and then I played in person, and then I just played a ton over the last few months. Once I got past that surface level understanding of how it worked, I think it's like a big onion, and it's really revealed itself to me. Probably not my favorite. I just like, there's a couple other games I'll talk about later that I like a little bit more, but definitely the best new 18xx I played this year, and certainly a top 3 for me.
Nice. Yeah, I think that 1871 might be beyond my 18xx skill set.
You get
to a certain point. There are certain games, 1817, and I'm not really playing the game anymore at that point. I'm just kind of doing things, whereas, and any sense of strategy is completely beyond me. I suspect that 71 might be that way.
You say that, and I don't necessarily agree with it. It's different. It's not more complex.
Okay.
The one weird thing you can do is you can split a company, but you don't have to. Actually, there may be games where you're not even able to, just because all the companies float, and then again, there's only a certain amount of set number of companies that can launch in the game. So what I would say is, if you're interested in trying it, don't do an asynchronous game. Let's try to get something going live, and I'll explain the very broad differences for what you need to know compared to something like 1846. And I think what you'll see is that it's actually not that much more difficult. It's just different.
Yeah,
it's not like 1817. It really isn't.
I'm always up for more live games.
Yeah, and I think it would just I think you're right. If you're just going through the motions, then it's just going to seem like another 18xx game. But yeah, you should give it a try live.
Will do.
All right. let's get back to war games.
Yeah, my number 3 game is a war game because I'm on a war game podcast.
Someone had to say it.
So this is the latest entry in a series that I'm a big fan of, the BCS Battalion Combat Series from MMP, and this is the Aracourt game. So similar to the previous games that I've talked about, except for Atlantic Chase, it's a smaller game, although it's not. I mean, you can play it in a few hours, but if you play the whole thing, it would take longer than that. But it's just a one map game. It's the smallest BCS game. There's lower counter density too. The formations are small. And it's just really fun. It gets you right into the middle of the action. Like on the first turn, the Germans are going to be jumping the American trains. So, you get a lot of chaos from the very beginning. The victory conditions are a little different in this game. There's basically like 3 hexes that you're fighting over. And then there's also, you're trying to make the other side lose more armor than you have lost. So those hexes will trade turns a lot of times during the game, and a lot of back and forth. It's just a fun BCS game. It's not my favorite BCS game, but it's definitely the best intro BCS game out there. If anyone were to ask where should I start with BCS, without hesitation I would say Aracourt.
Sure. And that's what it's designed to be, right?
Yep.
Very good. We're over halfway. That
Nice.
was the halfway point. Well, we're talking about favorite games, but what about our favorite just overall gaming memory of the year? And I guess this is one of the 2 places we do have consistent crossover. And I'm a little broader here, just Historic Fest as a whole. From the Thursday night beers in the bar to the Patreon meetup with Dawn and Bill, you and your wife, where we had, wings and beer, to going out for the barbecue, and then the actual game. Whether gaming, it was Next War with Dawn, or playing Dutch Inner City and Ponzi Scheme with Rex, 1832 on Sunday. 1832 is up there, my top 3 favorite 18X games as well. But in person, 1832 was phenomenal. Pickup games, Red Flag over Paris. Don and I played Stratomatic Hockey, but he was doing like live play-by-play calls the entire time. Beers, having the open bar, just getting by seat, just picking Mike Denson's brain over lunch about his design process and everything he thought of going into Last 100 Yards. The conversations. Historic Fest was really excellent last year. And it really just gave me a lot of inspiration moving forward for 2023 and what that event is going to be in the future. It was a great year, and yeah, definitely the tops for me.
Yeah, so it was also Historic Fest for me. And
I didn't mention this one because I didn't want to steal your thunder. But this
that's
was
okay.
For me too.
But I mean, it was more than that. It was all the games I played. I mean, at Historic Fest, I get to play my first face-to-face ASL game that I had played definitely since COVID, maybe like something like 3 years. I got to, meet Don and play a couple games with him, I think. I can't remember. But the one game that I enjoyed playing the most at Historic Fest was actually the Alien RPG. So you GM'd that for us. It was a one-shot that we played, and everybody was really into character, and we had a blast. I mean, we only played for a few hours, but it was just so much fun. And that was the first time I had played Alien RPG, and since then I've played more, and I love the system, but that was my first experience of it.
Yeah, that was a really great time. I'm glad you enjoyed it. We had everything from beginner RPG players to experienced players. It was just a lot of laughs and a lot of fun. Rambunctious fun.
Yeah, it was good stuff.
It was. Speaking of RPGs, someone who got me into RPGs? I don't know. This is kind of a weak segue. In the past, it was a really bit of a reach, but not every transition can have a natural segue. So in the past years, we've had to slice and dice Jason's contributions because there's too much good stuff and he doesn't hold back. Well, this year, as a special treat, unedited, well, maybe edited, cleaned up, volume increase, that type of thing, uncut, unseparated, Jason from AAC's All in One Blow Best of from 2022.
This is Jason from the Advance After Combat podcast, here to give my end of 2022 recap. Happy end of 2022 to Matt and Rich. Thanks for the opportunity to give some end of year stuff. I hope you guys are both feeling healthy and whole. Hope the family's doing well. I'm going to be all over the place, but I'm going to try to make it quick this year. My favorite nonfiction book this year was Destiny of the Republic, A Tale of Madness, Medicine, and the Murder of a President. Excellent book. Best fiction book I read this year. I read a ton of books this year. I think I read 100 books. I rated 25 of them 5 stars. So this was tough. 36 Streets is going to get the nod. It's a cyberpunk book. It's the best cyberpunk book I've read in a really, really, really long time. I'm going to give an honorable mention to Cloud Cuckoo Land and Between Two Fires. I'm sure Matt will talk about that. It's fantastic. My favorite movie this year was Glass Onion. It's fantastic. I mean, it's fantastic. Go watch it. Honorable mention here goes to Space Sweepers on Netflix. Again, cyberpunk, kind of fun romp. True crime podcast is going to go to Bone Valley. Really interesting story, kind of a nice resolution. I really liked it. Best board game podcast goes to 5 Games for Doomsday. Got this recommendation from Mark Johnson on Board Games to Go. Absolutely love it. Lots of fun. RPG podcast goes to Dangerous Times at Chill Haven High. Kind of silly, fun romp of a podcast. TV goes to Drive to Survive. This got me and my wife hooked on Formula One. By far the best show I watched this year. Fantastic. Best new to me war game this year was Infidel in the Men of Iron series or system. I had played Men of Iron, I had played Blood of Roses, but this is the year I played Infidel. Men of Iron continues to be just one of the systems I just want to play over and over and over again, keep coming back to it. Really, really enjoy it. New to me 18xx game of the year for me is 1837. Played this at Advance After Combat Convention. Tons of fun, super big, super long, really a lot of decision space. Honorable mention goes to 1848. Really, really enjoyed getting into that this year. Lots of fun, but 37 definitely gets a nod. It's a heck of a game. And new to me Euro is Obsession. A fantastic tableau builder, great theme, lots of fun, lots of story in it. Honorable mention here goes to Castles of Tuscany. Played this for the first time early in 2022. Really enjoy it, but Obsession gets the nod here. Like I said, I'm going to try to keep it short and sweet this year. Not a ton of other new stuff. No new hobbies this year, thankfully. Thanks for this opportunity. Hope you guys had a great year. Looking forward to the recap and more next year. Happy 2023.
Awesome. Always look forward to Jason's best of, and then it's like mad writing down everything he mentions.
Nice.
A little short this year, Jason. A little short. All right. Top two.
Top 2.
I guess it's top 4 if we combine our top 2s, or top 3 maybe. Games we played in 2022.
Yeah. Well, I already mentioned that my top 2 were from that one box. And I think most people are going to guess what my number 1 is. So my number 2 game this year is Vietnam 1965 to 1975. So this is a re-release of an old game. I don't know, Mitchell, tell me if I said it wrong, but he didn't redesign it. He just cleaned up the rules, and they cleaned up the map and re-released it, whatever you want to call it. But it's an older Nick Carp game, and it's just fantastic. This is another one that, I don't know if I'll ever get to play the campaign game, the full campaign. I sure hope to, because it just looks amazing. But even just the smaller stuff, you play, and the VC are just an absolute pain in the ass to hunt down, and the NVA are actually pretty big and strong. But the Marines have so much firepower and mobility and everything. So it's asynchronous. It's jungle warfare. It's hidden movement. It's everything you would want in a Vietnam game, and it's just absolutely a blast.
I'm so sorry, but did you say the name?
Vietnam 1965-75.
I couldn't remember if you did or didn't.
I think
Sorry.
I did.
Okay, good. Well, there it is.
Babbled on a little bit.
No, that's all right. I think you were like building it up, but then I was like, did he say? Anyways.
So yeah, that's my number 2 of the year, and that, like I said, was in that big box that I got in January. So between that one and my next one, I mean, you're talking about probably 9 months of the year that I played these 2 games.
I'll say it, and I'll say it, and I'll say it, but I've got to play Vietnam. Someday. All right. I didn't think I would get a chance to play my number 2 game by the end of the year, but I did get some live opportunity chances with this, and it was phenomenal. It lived up to the hype, and that's John Company 2nd Edition. We've talked about it on the podcast before, but if you're unfamiliar, you are playing the role of different families during the East India Trade Company's time in England, and so you're using your family members to influence the direction of the East India Trade Company, and you're placing out your family members in India, and you're trading, and you're trying to take on different roles in the company, or maybe you're trying to tank the company on purpose. And it's very much this game of negotiation and politicking. You know what we need to revisit next year is our top 6, top 5, whatever we decide to do, politicking games.
Sure.
Because when you get a chance to play this, and I think you will in February with me, this game is almost every time you move to a new phase, there's a new analysis of what the game state is and what deals you can make. And sometimes that's not always the case, but it seems to be there's at least an opportunity to negotiate and try to position yourself in the best position, which may not necessarily be the best interest of the company. Super awesome game, and not really a war game, but certainly historical in nature. So I guess the non-war games are outweighed by the, oh my gosh, the non-war games outweigh the war games this year for me, but it's awesome. It's just such a beautiful game. It's so well designed. The rules are very approachable. There is a lot, but it's so step by step that as long as you kind of understand the broad strokes, you can move to step 1, explain what happens, move to step 2, explain what happens, and go on, and you can get rolling in no time and have a fantastic time with John Company.
Yeah. And are we playing that next month for sure?
Well, it's certainly on the list.
Okay. I'd definitely like to.
Yeah. Okay. And, John Company is best with 4 or 5 people. Mm-hmm. And that's a good way to talk about what our best multiplayer gameplays of the year were, as well as our best solo games.
Yeah, so this was actually kind of a tough year for me as far as multiplayer. I play Here I Stand. I have played every year on Reformation Day, or that weekend before or after, for like 6 years now, and this is the first year that we had to completely cancel it because people dropped out, and drives me crazy. But and then I had a Twilight Imperium game scheduled for the end of the year, and people dropped out of that one, and we couldn't get it done. So, but I did get one Twilight Imperium game in March, I think. So it's one of my favorite games of all time. I can't remember where I have it on my personal list, but it's top 5 for sure. And it's a multiplayer game. It's an all-day affair. We played with the expansion, so we got the mechs out, and the expansion has some cool abilities like heroes and leaders and stuff like that. And it's just as much fun as you can have in a day in a multiplayer game. It's come prepared for 12 hours of fun, and you'll have it. You'll be tired at the end, but it'll be worth it.
Yeah, our play of Here I Stand just missed the cutoff by 2 days.
Yeah.
But with how things went for me as France, it certainly would not rank up there. The company was fantastic, but I did not have a great time as France this year.
Yeah, it was a rough go. I don't think I've ever seen France go downhill that quickly.
It was brutal. It was real bad. So before we talk about solo, I'll reveal my multiplayer. And I've got to get a shout out to, and I've talked about them in the past. Their heads are getting way too big for this. But Paul, Carl, and Rex are bi-weekly Wednesday night gameplays are just ridiculous. Most of 2022 was playing Victory Games Civil War. That, of course, has now shifted to Pacific War. And there's nights where we don't get much done, where we spend, the first hour of the night talking about Big 8 sports before it became the Big 12. And I don't regret that at all. And it's really a highlight, and it fills my month with bi-weekly laughs and just hanging out and chucking dice. And not, we're playing these big meaty war games, and Pacific War is brain burny, and we got through setup and just really kind of started playing last week. But it's just people hanging out and having a good time, and it's not necessarily games designed for multiplayer. Of course, I could talk about John Company or our amazing game of 1832 or all the Dutch Inner City plays. I mean, whatever you want to go with, those are all great multiplayer experiences that I could talk about. But really, for me, I'm highlighting the bi-weekly 4-player just for the camaraderie, for lack of a better word. So
nice.
All right, I think we have crossover for solo, and that's OCS Korea. And I'm stealing your idea because I really wasn't sure about this. But then as we were sitting here, I was thinking, what game did I devote the most solo playtime to? I played a lot of solo Red Flag Over Paris. That was great. But then really my peak solo gaming experience was OCS Korea.
Yeah. So something about Korea, and it's not just OCS Korea, it's also Next War Korea. But I just love that Red Tide over the border invasion scenario. But I like playing it solo, and especially OCS Korea, just because, I mean, to be honest, if you're playing the South Koreans on that invasion scenario, there's not much to do except get run over. So it plays better solo. And it's a fun, interesting puzzle to see how far you can get before the supply lines run out, especially in OCS. So I love playing that invasion scenario solitaire.
You know what I've wanted to do, and when I have time, I'm sure I will, is pull out OCS Korea, and we've talked about this scenario, but take the Chosen Reservoir and try to accomplish the best North Korean opening that I can. Because I feel like if you don't have a strong opening in that particular scenario, you're going to have a bad time as the North Koreans. And so I thought it'd be interesting, set it up, run it, and see what you can accomplish before things get hard for you.
Yeah.
And that's, when we talked about this, when we talked about monster games and stuff, yeah, we complain about these big, massive scenarios taking forever. Don't worry about that when you're approaching something like OCS or even Line of Battle. I know we just talked about it, how, I said you're buying Line of Battle to play the whole thing, not do the cornfield. The cornfield's still a very fun scenario. These small scenarios in OCS, and I don't know if BCS has the small scenarios. I shouldn't mention those.
Yeah,
but
they do.
They're tons of fun.
Yeah, in fact, I just started playing Brazen Chariots, and the first scenario is 5 turns. And it's
great.
A tiny part of one map, so yeah.
Nice. Very good. Well, yeah. OCS Korea for me as well.
Yeah. Yeah, and also with Vassal, I mean, you don't even have to worry about setup. You go in, you load the scenario up, and if you want to play 1 or 2 turns solitaire, no one says you have to play the whole, whatever the 127 turns or whatever. Play 2 turns just because it's fun to roll over the border with a bunch of commies.
100%. Yeah, do the opening, see what you can accomplish, challenge yourself. It's a great way to change up solo without doing bot stuff, you know.
Absolutely.
I will say that's what I did with Pacific War, but I think if you had a solo mode in the Pacific War Vassal module, the whole thing might melt because it's so big and there's so much going on. But you have to switch sides, and it's fine, and you get really efficient at it. But almost all, other than the initial setup of Pearl Harbor, was on Vassal. It's every time it's all right, switch sides.
The key is to play a turn, switch sides, skip a day, and then you come back to it and you can't remember what you did 2 days ago. So it's almost like you're playing against someone else.
What are those damn Americans up to now? Yeah, basically. All right. Mark Johnson has been submitting his best of since, before you were on the show, Rich. But more impressively, Mark Johnson just started or completed, I think he just started his 19th season or 19th straight year of podcasting.
That is awesome. I didn't know he had been doing it that long.
Yeah, and War Games to Go especially is a little irregularly scheduled, but I think that's 100% okay, because we do this, you and I, because we enjoy it, and I think that's Mark's schedule, and that's awesome.
And his format is a little different too. His format is just kind of, I'm going to talk about this subject because I feel like talking about it today. So.
So here's Mark talking about the things he enjoyed and the things he wants to talk about.
Hi, this is Mark Johnson of the War Games to Go podcast with my Best of 2022 offering for History on the Table. Another war game podcast that I really love. Thanks, guys. Well, I never feel like I do as much wargaming as everybody else. Frankly, it feels like everybody else. But I do a lot of thinking about it, and I do a lot of reading about it. And whether it's people commenting on your Discord channel, on other sort of sites, or just reading military history. And for me, it's kind of a cheat, but the thing about 2022 that I think about for wargaming is the return of travel. After COVID, I've gotten to do some traveling, and that's always been a big part of the hobby for me. I went back and looked. There's a discussion section or whatever it's called on Constant World that I put together or started called the Traveling Wargamer about this kind of thing. And I went back and looked. Oh my gosh, I created that board in 1999 within Constant World. And so it's been something I care about for a long, long time. And this year I got to do some of that traveling. I got to go see a wargame buddy, Tom, on the East Coast and visit Gettysburg, which I've seen before. More recently on a business trip, I got to squeeze in one day of traveling Hell's Highway and seeing the areas of Operation Market Garden. And I am playing Market Garden games now. I'll be able to pick a favorite pretty soon about that, and I'll dive back into Gettysburg soon enough. But for me, really, the longest exploration and most satisfying one of the year was about the Spanish-American War. And I ended up learning, like always happens with this kind of stuff, a lot more of the overall context of things. And so what I may have gone into it thinking more about, Teddy Roosevelt, Rough Riders, Charge at San Juan Hill, I learned about a much bigger context for the whole thing and history of imperialism in the world and transformation of the U.S. Navy and just a whole lot. And there's so much I didn't get to travel to Cuba, so I didn't get to see that, and I didn't go to the Philippines either, but I did go to Hawaii for a vacation, and that has an indirect connection to this topic as well, certainly to American imperialism that I learned a whole lot about, and it was fascinating. And one game I would single out from that general subject is called Cuba, The Splendid Little War, published in 2013 by Victory Point Games. It's designed by Javier Garcia de Gaviola. And it is not really about the Spanish-American War. It's about the Third War of Cuban Independence that goes from 1895 to 1898. But what we call the Spanish-American War, including that charge up San Juan Hill, happens like in the final two turns of this game because it tags on to the existing Third War of Cuban Independence. It's a card-driven game, out of print and probably hard to find. But the way those good card-driven games do, it gives you a fair amount of abstraction with this point-to-point map, but also a lot of flavor, historical flavor on the cards. And you learn a lot of the history and the context from there. So I really enjoyed my play of that, and it helped me learn about the subject. I think that's what stands out. Travel in general, and that game in particular. Thanks, guys. I look forward to another year of your podcast.
Well, again, congratulations on 19 years of podcasting, Mark. Glad to hear you're getting some traveling in as well. All right, Rich, is this even a surprise with all the
I think everyone knows that Zeppelin Raider was the best game of the year. That's what you picked, right?
Hold on, something's wrong. Pacific War. Yeah,
absolutely. It's just so good. I mean, it kind of feels weird to talk about it because we just did a full episode on it a couple weeks ago, right. But it's just a fantastic game, and like you said, you're starting the full campaign. I am going to be doing that. I'm not sure where I'm going to set it up yet, but yeah, that game's not going away anytime soon. That could be the first game of the year 2 years in a row.
Someone gave me, I'll say his name. I'll get into his head. Rex gave me a hard time because Pacific War was already the second best war game of all time. Look, that's going to prove itself over time, and I'm still so excited to play this game. I'm so eager for those bi-weekly games. I can't say it enough. Regardless of whether this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, wherever you rank it. And I think it's a top 10 game. And I think it's a top 2 game. There's no doubt that it's
a top
still
1 game. Actually, no, I don't, because I still think ASL's better.
That's not gonna happen. Well, that's not gonna happen. I have no doubt that this is the best new to me game I played in 2022, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Like, this was a no-brainer.
Yeah, it feels like we should talk about it more, but like I said, we just talked about it 2 weeks ago, so...
We talked about it for a long time 2 weeks ago, too. Yeah.
Yeah, no surprises there.
No, it really, really...
If that one is a surprise to you, welcome, because you're probably a new listener.
Yeah, and I heard, so a few people on social media and on our Discord were pulling this game out, and were either pulling to play along with us or heard what we said about it. And again, I just want to reiterate that I would not have pulled this game down had you not done so. It would be like Vietnam. Like, Vietnam is still sitting there. I will play it someday, but I am just so glad you did, because, wow, what a game.
My pleasure.
All right. Speaking of contributors that have been with us since the beginning, he's been a featured guest. He's our top scoring war game contestant of all time. It's Mitch. Let's hear from Mitch.
He sort of has a game on this year's Top Games of the Year.
Look at that.
Hey y'all, Mitch Land here. I guess Matt didn't listen to last year's little clip because he invited me back, so here you go. There were lots of best moments in 2022 for me. There's my epic drunken victory as the Fremen in Dune. That would be the original, not the upstart version, which I have played and liked, but it's not quite the same. At DC 2022, in which a player deliberately played a lasgun and a shield guard on himself. If you've never played, you have no idea what that means, but the rest of you are now in stitches. Of course, that's competing with the chance to work on a reprint of Nick Carp's Vietnam 1965-1975. That was a great time. I still have Nick's voicemails saved on my phone, I'm just saying. However, saving the best for last, I think playing a combined Next War Vietnam and Next War Taiwan at the U.S. Army Command and General Staff College pretty much has to trump everything else. Considering it happened just a couple days ago and just a couple days before this was due, I'll just say my Swiss cheese brain worked in my favor this time. So hoping for all the best for Matt, Rich, and all the History on the Table listeners. Merry Christmas.
All right, Mitch. I think Mitch has caught the magic bug just as much as you have. Or re-caught it, at least.
I know. We actually just played 3 games right before we recorded tonight.
Oh, Marlanta. It's awesome. Man, if they ever do Commander on MTG Arena...
Yeah, I've actually... Now we're getting off topic, but that's okay. We've done our top 6 games. I actually heard that Arena would have to be completely rebuilt to do multiplayer, so they can't.
I'm so surprised. So Arena came out before, like, Commander over COVID exploded. It was already on the verge of becoming Magic's most popular format, but Arena's not that old. Like, I'm a little surprised they didn't. So there is this older client called Magic the Gathering Online, MTGO.
Mm-hmm.
That thing is somehow still running on software from 1932.
Yeah.
And you can play Commander on there. But learning the interface of MTGO and how to, like, have your cards on MTGO is more difficult than learning how to play Commander. Yeah. So it's not really worth it.
What about a Tabletop Simulator or Octagon or something like that?
Yeah, so Tabletop Simulator, I believe you can import your decks. Like, I think you can get an add-on and, like, submit your deck list and be like, all right, here's my Commander deck, and it'll load it in for you. We could do that for sure.
Cool.
Or, in February, play in person.
There we go. That's definitely going to happen.
All right, folks, that's our top 6, but maybe 6 isn't good enough. Let's talk about what just missed. Our number 7, if you will. I went with, it's a game I've talked about all year long, Red Flag Over Paris. There's also, I'll mention one other game that just missed, and I think it would have been number 6 in front of Second Fleet had I gotten to play it more, but I never got a chance to reschedule our play of it, and that's Dominant Species Marine. I loved that game. Fantastic. Awesome. I love the action, the action selection process. It's a Euro game, published by GMT Games. Don't go in thinking it's the next Pacific War or anything like that. It's a Euro game, but it's very good. But more importantly, Red Flag Over Paris. This is going to be my go-to. Throw it in my game day bag. Throw it in my con bag. If you have 20 minutes, pull out Red Flag Over Paris, shuffle up and go. It's probably my most talked about game from 2022.
Cool. For me, it was Second Fleet, and like I said, if I revisit this list, I may switch things around. But I mean, it was a fantastic game. Just barely didn't make the list because I was thinking of other games, and I think part of the reason the other ones might, a Thunder at Dawn, I played that one in person, and I think it's obviously not fair to the game that I played it a different way, but I played Second Fleet Solitaire, and I played Thunder at Dawn in person against a person, so the fun factor felt higher. Maybe not fair to Second Fleet, but that's the way it came out for me.
Yeah, and I mean that also makes a big difference. I did a lot of Second Fleet solo, but then also Jason and I played like 4 Mondays in a row. You can go catch the live streams of that, and Mitch would drop in. And obviously, it's like solo's one thing, playing a pose is a whole nother thing, and then playing a pose in person is a whole nother thing.
Yep.
So I get it. Okay, folks. Again, a great year. I'm going to take the time now to just say, Rich, thank you for a fantastic year. It was a great year for the podcast. I've always said that this is like a fun thing for us, and I do this for fun, and the fun isn't even close to like drying up. I'm looking forward to everything we have going in 2023, what we have in the future. So thank you, Rich. Thank you to all our listeners. It was a great year.
Yeah, and it's nice to see new people joining Discord all the time.
Yeah,
being
great conversations
able to
going
talk
on.
to more people every week. We get someone else. So
you know, when we first started the Discord, I felt like I'd have to like almost chime in on every conversation because there was only 20 of us in there.
Sure.
And then even then, after a while, it's like the same 5 people. But now, like, conversations are happening on their own, and that's awesome. I mean, the community's growing. It's still a great place and the best place to hang out. And yeah, check it out.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm excited for this because I think we have some changes this year.
Do you?
Rich, we have a list.
We do.
A list of every war game ever made. Well, at least 57 of them. The 57 games we've covered, ranked from best to worst. Right now at the top of the list, it's the U.S. Civil War, ranked all the way back in episode 4. Followed by Zeppelin Raider, not followed by, but way down the list in last place is Zeppelin Raider, ranked all the way back in episode 5. This is a 2-part segment. 1, new additions. What are games that we don't want to feature as a whole episode, don't think the other one will have an interest in playing, or just don't think there's a deep enough game there. And then we'll go through the re-rank process and talk about the rules involved with that. So, Rich, do you have any proposals for additions to the list?
I do have one.
Okay.
So, and it's a game I've already mentioned tonight. I don't think we're going to review it, but Königsberg 45, which actually I think the full title of it is Königsberg, the Soviet Attack on East Prussia, 1945. So, like I said, this game was a disappointment for me. It's actually not a terrible game. I just think that it's more of a solitaire game than it is a 2-player game. And I think it fits right in with, we've got a little cluster of solitaire games, right around 40 or so, and I think it fits right in with those. So, NATO Air Commander, I think, is 38. Pavlov's House is 39.
No. I think you're looking at an old list.
I might be looking at an old list.
Yeah,
but...
Pavlov's House is down to like 41.
Okay, so right in that cluster is, I think, where this one goes.
Okay,
in fact, I would put it below Pavlov's House, but I like it right in that cluster of solitaire games.
Okay, so below Pavlov's House is Captain C, Rich. I really like Captain C a lot. And neither of us talked about any disappointment with Captain C.
Yeah, but
hold on. Below Captain C is Labyrinth, which we are not fans of, but we have to acknowledge is a banger game design.
Yeah, I think Labyrinth might be one that needs to move up.
I could see that. Then you have Brave Little Belgium, which is just tons of fun. And below that you have Ardennes 2024, and that's kind of where I'm looking because Ardennes 2024 is a fun game but has lots of flaws.
Yeah, I could see it anywhere in that area. So, Königsberg Force at 45 versus Brave Little Belgium.
I think that's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't played Königsberg, and if you're really strong about that, based off what you said when you played it, and what we've said about Labyrinth, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Labyrinth is the far better game design.
Yeah, I think Labyrinth deserves to be higher. But, yeah, I think I would put Königsberg above Brave Little Belgium, actually. Brave Little Belgium is probably more fun, but Königsberg, if you're playing it solitaire, there are actually some interesting mechanics in there. It's just no fun to play as one of the sides.
Good enough. I mean, that's good enough for me. I don't particularly have an interest in covering this. You can go back and check show notes for when Rich talked about this game in detail. I think there was actually, you played this over 2 months. Like, I think there was 2 back-to-back episodes you were able to mention this one in.
Yep.
So a little bit of the game can be explored there. Let's see. We didn't number this episode, which I'm completely fine with because it's not a normal episode. In the past, we also featured a game while doing our best of, and that's just too much. So year-end 2022 episode. Okay. All right. I have one, and I just think this is one that isn't very good. I don't recommend you play it, and I don't particularly recommend our listeners go play it. And that's Arcola, The Battle for Italy, 1796, designed in 1979 from Avalon Hill, designed by Tom Walczyk and Kevin Zucker. So here's the deal. This is almost a great little, less than $10, tiny game covering Napoleon in 1796 in Italy. The combat is fun. The idea of the game is fun. But not only is it roll to move, it's roll to activate, and it's roll to activate for one side. And although there's a pretty good chance you'll at least get one activation, it feels really bad when you roll and you get like none of your activations. And it is this fun game of maneuver and trying to, we'll do exactly that, outmaneuver each other. But the problem is the roll to activate isn't a guaranteed thing, and it's, roll to move works really well in GCACW because you're still always moving. Roll to activate in this game doesn't work because you're not always activating. And I think there's a reason why it's $8. And that flaw makes it one of the worst gaming experiences. Like, it has some redeeming qualities, but overall, I don't know if I would play this. I would love to see something like it without the design problems. And so for me, Rich, I think it goes in at the new 58.
Wow.
Which puts it below Titan, but above Zeppelin Rider.
Oh, okay.
Because
I was worried for Zeppelin Rider there for a second.
Titan is at least a very novel concept where you like break out and fight these arena battles, but if you're playing multiplayer, it takes forever. But at least it's fun. So unless you're opposed to it, that's where I would put it.
No, that sounds good to me.
There's a bunch of Kevin Zucker games I want to play, but you know what? If it sounds interesting and the topic sounds interesting, the Saving Grace series, you can find it for $8. You can play it and be done with it. And I'm sure you could come up with some other better activation system, but it was really a big turnoff for me. It was that bad and offensive. Otherwise, great game.
Other than that.
Okay, so that puts us at 50.
They can proudly say they are the 58th greatest wartime game of all time.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be games that fall below it. But, 58 sounds really bad. There are decisions to be made.
It sounds bad if you know how many are on the list.
That's right. But, just kind of thinking like, Ottoman Sunset's a fun game, and you're going to do the things you want to do. You're not going to lose out on activations by pure randomness.
Yeah.
Consistently. So, yep. Okay, that's great. We have 59 games. Arcola comes in at 58, and Königsberg comes in at 44. So now is the point of the end of the year where we each can pick one or more, I guess, if we really wanted to, game that we nominate for re-ranking purposes. We both have to agree, and the game has to move at least 2 spots, meaning we're not going to bicker about what's better between Next War India, Pakistan, and Red Storm. They're right next to each other. They're both great games. That doesn't really matter. There are a few exceptions that we've asterisked. Listen to our last episode, Pacific War. But I'm looking at Front Toward Enemy.
Okay. So again, this is one I haven't played.
I think I'm going to back off this then.
Okay.
Because I need you to play this game. It's that good. We need to play this sometime. You would really like. I mean, it's Vietnam. You love Vietnam.
I do.
And it's in the top 20 games of all time for me. On our year-end show, I had Front Toward Enemy in my, or not our year-end show. Yeah. On our listener top 20.
What's number 20? Battle Hymn?
Atlantic Chase.
Atlantic Chase. Okay.
Look at pull up episode 43 show notes.
Okay.
That's the current list.
I'm looking at the website, so.
Oh yeah. I don't think the website had Pacific War. Okay. Number 20 is Atlantic Chase, so probably not above Atlantic Chase, if I'm being completely honest. Probably above Battle Hymn, but I don't think we need to go through this if you haven't played it.
So it's actually kind of funny. I mean, yeah, and I will play this so that we can come back to this, but the further I get away from Battle Hymn, the less I like it. You know what I mean? Like, I've seen other Civil War games that are better. When I played Battle Hymn, I think it might have been like the first big Civil War game that I played, and I was crazy about it, and the map is beautiful, but the more I play other games, the less I like Battle Hymn, so.
Oh man, I don't know. It is Beer and Pretzels Civil War.
Yeah, it's got this crazy everybody attacks everybody. Don't need to get into it.
Yeah, I do like that though. I don't like the combat calculations because it's not very intuitive. But fair, whatever. It is what it is. Okay, do you have a proposal for re-ranking?
I do. One we just mentioned actually. So Labyrinth.
Yep.
And this is another one. I kind of bounced off it. I'm not crazy about the game, but I think it's better than where we have it, which is currently at 43.
I can buy that, and I think we've mentioned it, or at least in the episode following it, and I think we both acknowledge that Labyrinth is a better game design than where we have it. You know, we try to be objective as possible here, folks. Objectively, the U.S. Civil War is the best game ever made. Sometimes our personal biases might sneak into the list. I'm fine with moving this up just with how good a game design it is. I think it's better than 1754 Conquest, for example.
Mm-hmm.
But also I think NATO Air Commander is better than 1754. We should probably revisit NATO Air Commander when the new one comes out. Okay, we're only focusing on that. So I'll at least, I mean, that's at least like 4-spot jump.
Yeah.
Right above 1754 is, I guess, how high do you want to go?
So, man, the next sort of cluster, I think, is Brotherhood and Unity, Reds, Washington's Crossing.
Okay.
I mean, I could see it anywhere in there.
I could put it above Washington's Crossing easily.
Yeah.
Like, without even hemming and hawing over it.
Yeah.
Because then you start talking into, like, then you're doing fun factor. Reds is a super fun game.
Brotherhood and Unity, like I said, that was one of my big surprises because of just how much fun it is. So
Let's tick it up.
Okay, excellent.
All right. So that moves.
Well,
Labyrinth.
You still get one then. Do you want to move 1754? Because you haven't gotten your one.
No, NATO Air Commander.
Oh, okay.
And maybe it's 1754 going. They're just too close. Like, I don't think there's 1754 is better than Pavlov's House, but NATO Air Commander is better than 1754. It's just an anomaly with the list. That's fine. Just know that I am disappointed in you until you play Front Toward Enemy. Another game that probably deserves to be higher is Last 100 Yards. When you just think about the novel design concepts of what Mike is trying to accomplish in that game, in the sense of just like command and control, I think it's a better design than we give it credit for. And the more I play it, the more I enjoy it. But that's for future Matt and Rich.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to have to live with that shame until I play Front Toward Enemy.
Okay, now we're going to read off every game, one game at a time, in my best Grover Gardner impersonation.
Are you going to start at 59 or are you going to start at 1?
No, I'm not going to read them. You can find a link to the Every War Gamer list in the show notes.
That's a Patreon exclusive for Matt
me reading the list. Yeah. My brother does like terrible voices that he just thinks are the best, so maybe that's like Patreon exclusive, is my brother reading in his Julia Child's voice. You can find a link to the Every War Game Ever list on our website. I tend to wait a week before I update the website, or the Board Game Geek list takes longer just because it's a much longer process. I tend to wait a week to update the website just for spoiler reasons. But I will post this one as soon as we're done, since it's just re-rankings and a couple new additions.
Cool.
Okay. I had one
the list
other
is set in stone again until it gets soft again next year.
Until it goes limp again. Except for, there are 2 games. We should mention those exceptions. Pacific War, we already mentioned, can be re-ranked as we spend more time with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then playing the Silver Bayonet campaign opposed, which is my goal for Historic Fest 2023, which, boom, is our transition to one of our last war game topics of the episode, and that's what game are we most looking forward to playing in 2023. Silver Bayonet, I just mentioned it, but what I am really most looking forward to is more time with Pacific War. I'm not just saying that. It's not hot air I'm blowing out my mouth with about Pacific War. I am looking forward to the next several months, bi-weekly, playing Pacific War.
Makes me so happy to hear you say that, because you're sounding like me 6 months ago, where you're like, I can't stop playing this game. It's just so good.
It just keeps peeling back more and more layers. Yeah. The other one is a little more unconventional, and this wasn't really considered for the best of, even though it was new to me for 2022, just because it's a miniatures game. But a local buddy, Zach, he's active on our Discord. He does amazing painting stuff, has been my intro into Kill Team. Kill Team is so fun. And the fact that you can show up, you have your 9 minis, you get a little terrain out, and you play in an hour and a half, 2 hours, 2.5 hours, depending on whatever you're playing. And then you have, narrative scenarios, and just, it's really solid gameplay and doesn't really trip over itself very much. It's just good miniatures gameplay. I've tried to dabble in the painting YouTube streams and stuff like that, but outside of that, I'm not really a minis gameplay player. Mm-hmm. And really in 2023, I want to make it a priority to play more Kill Team because it's that good.
So is that Warhammer?
That's tactical Warhammer. It's like squad based
and that's
Warhammer.
The the Warhammer, is that 40K?
40K.
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha.
So there's a fantasy version of that called
Right.
Warcry, which also I would like to try. But this is the 40K version of it. And it's just obviously, if you want to go balls deep into Warhammer Kill Team, you can get every faction or whatever. But if you want to play this one faction, I have the Sisters of Battle. That's all I have painted right now. Love playing them. They're a great team. They look awesome, thanks to my buddy Zach. And that's fine. I can just show up with my Sisters of Battle, and that's all I need. I don't need hundreds of dollars of models. And that's great.
Perfect.
Not that I haven't spent hundreds of dollars of models that are sitting unpainted, but I didn't have to.
Nice.
All right. What about you, Rich?
For me, it's Advanced Squad Leader, and it's not just because I love the game, because I've talked about that enough, but actually for an even better reason. So my daughter, for a while, has been saying, one of these days, Dad, I want you to teach me how to play ASL. And then, it's come up a few times, and then since she's been home over Christmas break, we finally got around to it, and we've started playing. We played a couple times in the last week, and she absolutely loves it. So it's to the point where she's coming to me saying, hey, Dad, can we play ASL? So she's loving it. It's my favorite game of all time. And hey, I may have a face-to-face ASL partner for life now. So I'm super thrilled about that.
Awesome.
Yeah, she's even when I've told her about some of the historical stuff, and she's super excited. She's, we're playing a small scenario now, but she's asking about bigger stuff and talking. She loves legacy games, so I told her about the campaign scenarios, and yeah, so we're gonna dive in deep this year, I think.
That's awesome. I kept trying to get my oldest daughter, she's 3, to pick up Pacific War, and it's just it's not happening.
Oh. Well, I gotta say, I've been working on this one for a long time. Yeah. She's 22, so.
This is your oldest daughter.
Yeah, not the 13-year-old. The 13-year-old only knows her electric guitar. That's the only thing she cares about in the world right now.
Oh, that's awesome, dude. Very good. Well, there's lots of stuff I'm looking forward to in 2023, but those are the games that immediately jumped out at me. I'm sure I could talk about all the games that I want to play and ought to play. And you mentioned the Hexasim Napoleonic games before we started recording. It's like, oh, yeah, I should really do those. Anyways, those are things I know I'm going to play, and so that's like a real SMART goal because it's attainable and approachable and manageable. That's not the right order of the SMART acronym, but whatever, you get the point. Folks, that's going to almost be it for the War Game Talk. Everything from this point on, other than the last thing I'm about to plug, will not be about war games. So if you don't care about things like Magic the Gathering or Rich watching America's Next Top Model or our other favorite TV shows, you can go ahead and unplug. But I recommend you stick around. So, final thing. This is not the last time you'll hear from me in terms of what the best stuff of 2022 was. Our ballots to the judges for the Historical Board Game Awards are going out at the end of January. We'll tabulate, then we'll do the fan vote based off the final nominations from the judges, retabulate, and we will have your 3 award winners for the Historical Board Game Awards for 2022 shortly after that.
Excellent.
Yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Got a good group working on that.
Yes, we do. All right, Rich, anything else you want to mention or discuss in terms of board gaming or wargaming?
No, I'm going to stop talking war games now. You've already stopped. Only 3 of your games are war games.
Well, there were some. Like, I mean, I could go through like my top 20 and like talk about all the things that just missed. Hatton and Flames, that was new to me this year. That was awesome, Rich. Last 100 Yards, Solomon Islands, brings in the Japanese. Next War, Poland. Okay, that's like just love for Next War. I didn't really actually play that. Greater Victory. What else? We already mentioned Red Flag Over Paris. So, I mean, there's some more like just to keep my war game card in check, but those other games were even better.
Yeah. How about train games? You're You're way bigger into train games than I am. So, I mean, I've talked about this. I enjoy them. I think I need if I wanted to play more train games, I would have to stop being so scatterbrained about it. You know what I mean?
You need a live play.
Yeah,
you need a live play with. And did you play with your family? Didn't you do 46 with your family or something?
No,
okay.
We were going to play.
Oh, you did Irish Gauge. You did Irish Gauge.
Yeah, we played that a couple times, and I have played a couple live train games. I played the first time I ever played an 18X game, XX game was live. I think it was. Which one is the Midwest? Is it 49?
46.
46. Yeah, I think it was 46. So.
Yep. So, this is a good.
And I've played 18 Owl with my family twice. So
okay, yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah,
I think this like whether you call it being scatterbrain or like on the surface level is a good segue into 1817. And what I wanted to mention about it is, if you asked me at the beginning of the year, or I don't know when, June, I would talk about how much I don't really like 1817, and I think part of it was this like not really diving in approach to it, because you can go through, and I'm not saying this about you because I've done it too for several 18xx titles. This happens to a lot of people. I just go through the motions because 18xx.games allows me to go through the motions.
Sure.
And that was my problem with 1817. Some point over the summer, I was like, I want to give 1817 another try. You know, we have a lot of people that we associate with. Rex plays it like every other week or some crap like that. I want to get to know this game, and I did, and it's completely flip-flopped from a game I really had no interest in spending the time playing. It's this big meaty game with mergers, and you can short shares and do a whole bunch of mean nasty things in this game. It's now climbed to top 4 18xx games for me, and I think part of that was just taking the time to be like, all right, I'm gonna like dive into this. Now, some games you can appreciate and enjoy without like some massive deep dive. They're not that big of undertaking. 18AL I think is a lot of fun. 18 Mississippi is a game that's not very deep, but it's just a game I like because you kind of have these like privates with superpowers, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think, yeah, if what I would recommend to you, if that's what you want to do, is let's do one of these, but let's do them live. Hop on Discord. we'll probably have to refresh our browser a bunch, but we can more or less play live on 18xx.games, or if we want to, we can, get Tabletop Sim or something like that. But just having the conversation of, there's so many things that I've learned just by being reading more about 18xx.games, listening to different train game podcasts that are just things you pick up. They're not things I would have picked up strategy wise on my own for sure without people telling me what to do or hearing about. Anyways, this was all going to be how great a year of train gaming it was with 1871, 41, 1870, The Old Prince, 1832. All of those are probably my 4 favorite 18xx games, and I played them all this year, and 3 of them in person, and it was fantastic. And they all do different things. 1832 is a game with mergers and share protection and things like that. 1817 has mergers, but it's ramped up on crack and has shorting shares. 1841 has reverse mergers. You can split off companies. 1870 you can split off companies, but it's way more limited, and the track lay is way more different. You wind around, and it has a ton of trains, and trains just keep moving. All really great experiences. So. And the last thing I'll say is just Dutch Intercity. I've already talked about it, but holy smokes, I can't talk about this game enough. It's just a banger. The mental gymnastics I'm doing in my head to evaluate when to hopefully close out the auction or how much to bid before this player drops out. It's just what a great year for train gaming in addition to wargaming.
Yeah, Dutch Intercity to open up Historic Fest sounds like a perfect idea.
Yeah, and it plays fast. You can get into way longer Cube Rail games, but Dutch Intercity really clips along. So, some great games churning through .games. Thank you, everyone who's played with me over the year. Rob, Patrick, Jason, Tank Jason, Duck, Rex, you, Bill, Dan, everyone from Dome that I played with. I'm sure I'm forgetting people, and I'm sorry if I'm forgetting you, but it's an insane amount. I'm looking at my past games, and it's just an insane amount of finished games this year, and it was great.
Yeah. The other thing for me, 2022, and not a war game, but my family played Pandemic Season 0. So my daughter, the 22-year-old, and I, we both played Season 1 and Season 2 together, a few years ago. I don't even remember exactly when, but Pandemic Season 0, we actually started in January and finished it in December. So it took us a year to play with her going back and forth school and everything, and the 4 of us finding time to do it. But we all had a blast doing it. If you've ever played Pandemic Legacy, it's, if you like Pandemic, it starts off like regular Pandemic and then quickly changes, but it's still the same basic mechanics. And, there's story stuff and the board changes and it gets very hectic as you're trying to do the different objectives and everything. And it's a lot of fun. I would highly recommend it if you enjoy that type of thing. So we played them in the order they came out. So 1, 2, and then 0. And I think that's probably the best order to play in. 1, Pandemic Season Legacy Season 1 was still my favorite out of the 3, but I liked 0 better than 2.
Nice. This is something I've always wanted to play, but I will probably never play because my wife really dislikes co-op games. Really dislikes Pandemic specifically.
Yeah, my family loves co-op games. It's most of the time when we play a family game, it's going to end up being a co-op game.
Yeah, and I'm very picky on my co-op games. But this is something I want to experience just because of all the buzz and how much praise these games get. But probably unlikely unless it just kind of falls into my lap one day.
Yeah. Yeah, and then next year, hopefully we'll be playing Frosthaven, which is another big co-op game. So
there you go. Now, she did like Gloomhaven a lot, so I guess that's
good.
the one exception.
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay, let's do all the other stuff, shall we?
Sure.
All right, let's start with Best Fiction. Take it away.
This is actually end of the year. We just my wife and I listened to 11/22/63, which is the Stephen King sort of time travel book about a guy trying to stop the Kennedy assassination, and we both really got into this book. In fact, so on New Year's Eve, we had a couple parties we were going to go to, and my wife wasn't feeling well, so we decided we were just going to stay in. And the two of us stayed up until
Awesome.
like 2:30 in the morning on New Year's Day, binging the last 6 hours of this book. So, yeah, we enjoyed it quite a bit. And we actually started the Hulu series and immediately were like, well, that's not like the book. So we kind of got turned off by it. But the book was great. It was definitely the best fiction book we read this year.
You know, I'm a big sucker for like teen angst, coming of age movies and TV shows. Like, and I'll admit it. When season 1 of 13 Reasons Why came out, my wife had read the book. She's like, oh, I really like this. We should watch this show. And it's got this like banging soundtrack. And I watched it, and I think we watched the first episode, and this was before we had kids. And so my wife was working 5 days a week and all that stuff. She's like, I got to go to bed. I was like, I love this. And I stayed up and watched every episode of 13 Reasons Why all night from beginning to end, and like just didn't sleep that night because I was like so into it. It's been a long time since something has gripped me like that. So it's awesome to hear that this had that effect on you.
Cool.
All right. I had to go way back because Between Two Fires, I talked about that. That's kind of the Lovecraftian, but Angels versus Demons medieval book by Christopher Buehlman. It was fantastic, but if I really have to think about my best fiction from the year, it's going back all the way to January of 2022, Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. This is oozing Lovecraft vibes. It's very weird and kind of unlike anything I've ever read, but holy shit, is it like just so atmospheric. My goal is to reread this and then read the rest of the trilogy. It's called Southern Reach, and this is the first book. It's only, 200 pages or something like that. It's not very long. 195 pages according to Goodreads. I love this. The audiobook was fantastic. It had a great, just like chill to it. Very creepy, very mysterious, very Lovecraftian. Highly, highly recommend Annihilation.
Nice. I'm adding both of those to my list because that's
good. Man, Between Two Fires is just right behind it. That's
Excellent.
why I'm cheating and mentioning too. And I'm going to do it again with nonfiction. Okay, so, again, another book I read early in the year is The War of the Roses by Dan Jones.
Yeah, which is one that I haven't read yet by him. I've read a bunch of his other ones, but yeah.
I mean, you could pick a Dan Jones book and throw it on here, and
sure.
You're going to be pretty safe, right? But it was, just looking back on that reading experience, it took me a long time to get through it, like a month, better part of a month to get through it. But fantastic, so well written, and very interesting, covering the rise of the Tudors. Very good. But my number one, the one that just edged it out, was something I mentioned recently, The Outpost, An Untold Story of American Valor. Just because the emotion it evokes and brings out, it's so well written, it's so interesting. And again, it's Kop Keating during Kamdesh in War for Afghanistan. Super recommend it, and go ahead and read Red Platoon while you're at it. I've talked about those books ad nauseum. Just fantastic. 5 out of 5.
Yeah, those are both on my list, thanks to you.
All right, what about you?
So early in the year, I read Six Frigates, and I remember at the time I said, if I managed to read a book better than this, I would be very surprised. And then it got to be the end of the year, and I was like, wow, the Ian Toll Pacific War trilogy was even better. I mean, I can't put anything above what the Pacific War trilogy was. It was the Pacific War of books. So it was fantastic from beginning to end. It was huge and detailed and interesting. And I mean, if at some point in a few years I want to read another Pacific War book, I will probably read that one again just because it was so good.
Nice. Okay. Let's keep it moving. Best TV and movies.
Yeah, for me, it was Andor.
I gotta watch this.
Yeah, so I've been... It's funny because I mean I'm a big Star Wars fan. I've been a big Marvel fan, which are the reason I mention them both is because they're both under Disney now. And I'm not even going to say, I mean, I'm no sort of expert, so I'm not going to say, oh, it's Disney's fault since they bought them. But both franchises have been declining recently, and they've been putting a lot of stuff out that, to be fair, I watch it anyway. But I'm like, whatever. Not Andor. Andor was fantastic. Andor was, I mean, and I think what they did with Andor is I think they, instead of trying to tell a Star Wars story, they told an excellent story in the Star Wars universe, and I think it made all the difference.
Yeah, this is top of the list for me for 2023. There's a whole bunch of stuff I want to watch on HBO or Apple that we haven't watched because we haven't had Apple in the past before, but we'll drop something and pick it up. But before I jump to the Apple stuff, I'm going to watch Andor for sure.
Cool.
And slip of the tongue with HBO. This was a 2021 release. I don't think I got to this in 2022, or if I did get to it in 2021. I don't know if I got to it in 2021. If I did, it was after we recorded. Anyways, it's the Dune movie. What a great sense of atmosphere and just visual effects. Not like the best thing I've ever watched, but as a big fan of Dune, I thought it did a great job.
Yeah, and me as not a fan of Dune, like I've never done it, consumed any Dune books or movies or anything.
You read the books?
No, I never read the books. I never saw the old movies. This was my introduction to the Dune universe, and for a new guy, it was good. I mean, it made me want to see the next movie whenever that one's going to come out.
You gotta listen to the audiobooks, man. They have like an audio cast. Oh, they're so good. Yes, add it to your list. It's so good.
All right.
And you can stop with just Dune. Like, you don't have to keep going. And if you really want to keep going, you can do the first 3 books and then never look at anything past the first 3 books.
Cool.
Oh, you got to read Dune. Well, you don't have to, but you should read Dune. The other thing I'll mention, and this one was kind of a bit of a surprise, but the more I think about it, the more it just checks a lot of boxes, is Wednesday on Netflix. Mm-hmm. It's funny. It's got creepy vibes. It's not scary. It's got teen angst. It's got all kinds of just different cool, like they're at the school and everyone's got all these different things that make them an outcast. It was really well acted and casted, and it was just a lot of fun. Again, nothing that's I'm gonna go down as one of my favorite shows of all time, but even with the Midnight Club coming out this year, I was really kind of pressed for something, and then as I was going through stuff, it's like, oh yeah, Wednesday. We had a ton of fun watching Wednesday this year. And then, of course, I think CB Strike was new to me this year. I'll mention that. That was a fantastic show. And then, shit like Great British Bake Off and stuff. We love that stuff.
My daughter's really been bugging me to see Wednesday, so we'll watch that soon enough. And
Your
Midnight
13-year-old?
Club, I've heard bad things about. I heard it wasn't that good.
It's fine.
I've seen the first 3. I haven't seen Midnight Club yet, just because I didn't hear good things about it.
Yeah. I mean, the first 3 just set the bar. So, first off, is your 13-year-old the one interested in Wednesday?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it has like some violence and stuff, but it's so good, and it's not like overly bad. But anyways, that's for you to decide. Hotel Portofino is a PBS masterpiece show. It's not quite as good as Durrell's in Corfu, which is one of my favorite PBS masterpiece shows, but it takes the same vibes and the same good feelings I got from Durrell's in Corfu and did something similar. So Hotel Portofino is a British hotel in Italy, but it's during the rise of fascism in the 1920s. And it's just all the shenanigans they get up to. That was really good as well. If you like period dramas, Hotel Portofino was pretty darn good. But again, if you haven't seen Durrell's in Corfu, just go watch Durrell's first. And then if you want more like that, watch Hotel Portofino. All right. I think that covers that.
I think we have consensus on best drink of the year.
Oh, yeah, this is a no-brainer. It's the Sink Pack.
Yeah.
Old-fashioned with rum. Old Chesty. Our good friend, Old Chesty.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's an obvious one for me. I mean, I love an old-fashioned. You take an old-fashioned, throw some rum in there, you got a good drink.
You know what? I don't necessarily love an old-fashioned. And I love this. And I think it's the lack of like, is vermouth an old fashioned? I don't know. I don't even remember what's in an old fashioned.
Not the way I make it, no.
And maybe there's not. I could be way off. I'm just not an old fashioned fan. But
Yeah.
man, these are strong. They're good. And if I were drinking tonight, I'd be drinking a sink pack.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, let's close it out, Rich, and then we'll do like final thoughts and whatnot.
Yes, I'm excited to see your choice for RPG out here because that's something that I think I'm going to be starting soon.
Okay.
But yeah,
so
RPG of the year was. I mean, this was a tough one for me because I'm in a Warhammer Fantasy RPG campaign that we've been playing for.
I think that was your pick last year.
Yeah, it probably was because we've been playing for 2-3 years, and it's still. I mean, I'm enjoying the system. It's great. Alien is new to me this year, but
So
I haven't
fun.
played it that much. But I like it a lot. I love the whole concept of the stress dice and everything. But I think for me, more than anything else, it's Call of Cthulhu. That's just. I started playing Masks of Nyarlathotep this year. I'm looking to run some one-shots in Modern. I've got the Pulp book because I want to play around with, actually shooting and fighting monsters rather than run away from them. There's just so much you can do on Call of Cthulhu, and I've run through some sessions with you with Tom's Town. It's just a great system. I enjoyed quite a bit.
Yeah, I've had a great time with Call of Cthulhu. Like full disclosure, I think I like playing Call of Cthulhu more just because I want to experience the creepy mysteries. But my pick of the year has to be Savage Worlds. So shout out to Art. This was not a busy RPG year for me, but Art's M-Space game, and he has a game set in Deus Vult. He's taken Deus Vult and converted it to Savage Worlds. And I've just been so his games are fantastic, but as a system, Savage Worlds seems to be really just about the action. Combat doesn't seem to really bog down. I've only done 2 sessions with Savage Worlds, and then character creation. I really enjoyed creating my character. The system is fun. Like, you kind of have like exploding dice to a certain extent. Really looking forward. Patrick's gonna do a Weird West Savage Worlds. And so there's some Savage Worlds in my future, and I'm very impressed with the system. Certainly, I didn't play a lot of new stuff in 2022, but even if I did, I am still very much looking forward to this as a system and what it has in store.
Yeah, so my only experience with Savage Worlds is from a few years ago. We did play Deadlands, which is the Weird West.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And that was one of my favorite all-time gaming experiences. But I got some local friends here who have been talking about playing a game. I'm going to run something for them. And they all come from D&D, and I'm just not a big fan of the D&D system. But I figure I can play Savage Worlds, and we can play it in a fantasy setting. And so I'm going to do something in, I think, 3 weeks. So yeah, I'll let you know how that went.
Yeah, and I'm happy to say that my RPG is scaling up. I bought Index Card RPG. I'm very excited for that, which is kind of system agnostic, but looks to be really fun. And then I'm doing this has been my like dream setting. I'm doing a Hellboy /BPRD-esque game, and the approach we're kind of taking there is we're trying out a bunch of different systems until we find what sticks. And so we're starting out with a rules light system called Agents of the Odd, which is based off of Agents of the Odd. I'm not familiar with what it's based off of, but it's based off of well, now I don't remember. Oh well, I'll edit this part out. Anyways, really looking forward to that. It's rules light. Read through the rules there. Seems to not really get in the way of itself, but seems to allow you to play in the Hellboy universe quite easily or do BPRD things. So I've got that running. And of course, I mean, Degenesis, which setting-wise blows Savage Worlds out of the water, but like rules-wise, I think Savage Worlds is a better system just because Degenesis is all about the art, so I've got that going on. It's just going to be a good kind of return to RPG year. And shout out to our buddy Hollywood for running and keeping consistently a monthly game of Curse of Strahd ongoing through busy schedules and family commitments and all that stuff. Curse of Strahd has been fantastic as well. But again, system-wise, yeah, Savage Worlds definitely has my ear way more than D&D 5e right now.
Nice.
Okay. All right, Rich. Any closing thoughts or anything you want to say?
Only that I would say, we talk about it every 2 months when we record, but, join the Discord. That's the best place to talk to us. It's the best place to talk to the other listeners, to find games. There's lots of people there arranging games, looking for games all the time. So I can't think of any better place to arrange them than on the Discord channel.
Yeah, links in the show notes. And we'll cut all the other stuff short because, well, you just heard from us, and you'll hear from us again in a few weeks when we do the short game extravaganza, all that stuff. But again, folks, like statistically, I like looking at stats and stuff, but they don't matter because, again, whether my mom is the only listener out there or we have a million Patricks out there, one, I'd be ecstatic if we had a million Patricks out there. Whatever the case may be, it's so fun. But this year was our best year, obviously, which just getting better and better. And we did more episodes than we've done in the past. I'm really happy with just like having the option to drop in Deserted Island Dice / Deserted Island Dads, depending on what the topic of questions will be and who our guest is. But also, you know what, if we just want to do a pickup designers on the mic, and then just more importantly, just having fun with Rich every month, and sitting down and talking about games we enjoy and what we've been up to is just, it's great. And so thank you for making it the best year that we've ever had. And you know what? I know it's 8 months away at this point, folks, but come hang out with us in Kansas City. Historic Fest is going to be great this year. I kind of eased the brakes over the holidays, but you know what? We're 8 months out, and it's time to start ramping up, and it's maybe not lock your game picks in, but yeah, it's time to start making plans for Historic Fest.
Start to talk about games anyway.
Yeah. Got plenty of time, but I'm excited, and so come hang out with us, whether it's in person or on the Discord.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, it's already 10 days past the new year, but here we are. And
We
we'll be
still
back
say
in just a
Happy
few
New Year.
weeks. Yeah, Happy New Year. Thanks again. And yeah, we'll see you. You're getting 3 episodes this month from us.
Wow.
And we've got a Deserted Island Dice on the menu, but I told them, I was like, well, let's wait until like February or March because we're about to dump a whole bunch.
Yeah.
Awesome, Rich.
Awesome.
Great choices. Good games.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.